can't be too soft to start.
Guys, I'm glad we're finally meeting because I actually have some business for the pod. I think that we should just completely rebrand the podcast. I think we just need to call it Suck Zone.
Oh, no. The Suck Zone.
Suck Zone.
Okay, all three of us looked nervous. Like, we were like,
Yeah.
is Peter, like, quitting? Is he, like, what is happening here?
Yeah.
Hey, everybody, welcome to No Flicks Given. I'm Frank, and for the first time in probably months at this point, we actually have all four of the No Flicks Given Mount Rushmore heads. I got Matt, Peter, Connor, and myself. No guests, just a nice, clean, we're giving it to you raw here today.
Some people raw dog flights, we raw dog podcasts.
Ooh,
That's what we do. It's good to see everybody.
Yeah, it's, as we've been saying, it has been too long.
And especially in the doldrums of summer, where you know we've all been traveling and doing various things. It's nice to like just get the crew back together, kind of like recenter ourselves, and engage in some like truly spectacular summer movie fun.
Especially
Very
for the three
Sandlot
of us that
of
are
us.
in the tri-state New York region where we have to turn our air conditioners off to record this podcast,
I know.
and we're sweating our asses
So
off.
it's going to be a quick episode.
While soft hands Peter York sits with his central air conditioning, no sweat on his brow,
No,
not even a drop.
how do you survive Texas otherwise?
That is
Fair.
true.
Yeah, they say it's going purple, but I think it's just in your complexion. Probably.
Yeah, exactly. We're so red, we're purple.
You're going to have to get that checked out by a dermatologist, really.
Might have to scrape it off.
Guys, this is also, I'll say, probably going to hold the record for the most like timely episode we've recorded and then posted. I don't know if anyone listening can tell. A lot of the episodes we'll record weeks or sometimes even like months in advance. We honestly have some we just haven't dropped ever. But with this one, because we're covering this movie, because the sequel, Twisters, comes out this weekend. We're recording this Wednesday, July 17th, and I'm hoping to have this ready, cut, and dropped by Saturday at the latest. So we'll have we're right here with you. We're reacting to all the
Synergy.
same news you are. So we feel everything you're feeling.
We are
Yeah.
trying so hard to sell out right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is as sellout as we
Warner
get.
Brothers, Universal, we're here. This is synergy, guys.
Yeah.
And we're not even part of the
And-
team yet. Bring us on.
Nothing feels better than selling out, other than the clean, refreshing taste of a Pepsi. I don't know
Right?
about you guys, but like Pepsi really, like as I'm podcasting, is the drink of choice that I prefer.
We all started out in the same lab, then Jonas went out and got himself some corporate sponsors. He's in it for the money, not the science.
All right. I wanted to talk about that because I've never really thought about that before. The fact that
Pepsi saves the day in this movie.
Yeah. You didn't
Yeah.
notice it, but your brain did.
That's right.
I thought you were going the route before you said that. I thought you were going the route of like he's in it for the money, not the science.
Yeah.
There's the corporate sponsorships. Yeah.
My boss Mike is our age, and we were talking about this movie a couple of months ago. He'd watched it, and ever since then, constantly when we see each other on Zoom meetings, we're like, Jonas, son of a bitch.
But who's the corporate sponsor? Like unnamed black van company? Like
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know how any of it really works. And also, we'll get into it.
AccuWeather?
They keep cutting to meteorologists in like an office somewhere.
Yeah.
And I can't tell who they're feeding that information, what team they're with. I guess they're just sending it out generally.
I thought they were just a framing device for this is going to be a crazy day with a ton of tornadoes.
They like added that in
Yeah,
to sort of like, they're not really part of it.
Okay, yeah, because I think the information that they're yelling into the phones is what winds up on the laptops of like this is the storm system
Yeah,
coming
maybe.
together, and it's a government a government organization of some kind that is supposed. I had links.
It is
for
a
all
real
this
one.
shit.
Hold
Yeah.
on.
Oh yeah, this movie's scientifically sound. This is
Well, no.
yeah.
They actually got NOAA scientists out with them through the whole shoot to make sure that like it was actually as scientifically accurate as they could get. I mean,
Unfortunately, they did not have them in the CGI suite because.
Well, you know.
I mean, I get it was 96,
I'd have
but
no problems with this CGI. I think the CGI holds up fine for me. Maybe other than the cat, but
It depends.
I'll say there's probably a couple shots, but I'll say too. This is one of those movies that falls into like everything that happens is probably accurate. All of the jargon they're saying is accurate, but never would this actually play out this way. The same way, like the poker game in James Bond could technically happen, but it never would. You know?
Did no one else, while they were reading the Wikipedia article, see the link for the 1999 Oklahoma tornado outbreak?
no.
In which there was a week-long event of 152 tornadoes touching down in these areas. The most dramatic events unfolded the afternoon of May 3rd through the morning hours of May 4th, when more than half of these storms occurred.
What year did you say this was?
This is
so
after
ahead of
Twister
ourselves here.
came out, but this is
Yes, okay.
it 70 some odd storms hit Oklahoma in like a 24-hour period, the same part of Oklahoma in a 24-hour period.
That's crazy.
So
The fact that
it
Oklahoma
can happen.
People are religious at all is insane to me. That they would be like, yeah, I definitely believe in a higher force, and this happens to us. On a
I mean,
regular basis.
when some wind comes and knocks down everything you and everybody that you know property over, that would suggest a higher
But
power,
not
of some
yours.
kind.
Sure, but then pick up a different ancient book and keep trial and erroring until you figure out what's going to stop it.
What, like fucking Benny from The Mummy?
Okay, wait. Before we go too far,
I have all the horses.
Looks like you're on the wrong side of the river. Anyway,
we're talking about a different 90s lovable movie here today. This is a whole other piece.
Different
But,
quality. Yeah.
yeah.
We're talking about Twister, 1996, the original Twister, a movie that I genuinely love this film, like start to finish, everything, even in its cheesiness, even in its cartoonishness. I don't know where the rest of you guys stand on it, and I'd be curious. So let's do a quick round robin just to get general feeling, so we know where we're all attacking this movie from. So we'll start with Connor.
Yes, me. So I had not seen this movie since childhood. It was on heavy VHS rotation in the household one summer. I forget precisely when. This is actually a sort of a core memory movie for me because in the same summer of '96, there was a family reunion at my parents' place in Virginia with all my dad's side of the family. And the options were to go see Twister or Mission Impossible. And I was the only cousin to pick Mission Impossible. So it was me and my dad going to see Mission Impossible while every other single member of the family went to go see Twister.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And, you know, it was one of those movies. It was on rotation on like sort of in the background. Like I have a lot of memories of images of this film when lots of...
Yeah, how well did you remember it?
Not very well at all. I remembered certain shots. I remembered the broad strokes of the tornado sequences. I had completely memory hold saving Aunt Meg from the collapsing house. In my memory, that was like a very brief, just sort of like shoot through scene, as opposed to an actually very intense and kind of emotional scene.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I certainly saw it before I like had really thought about movies seriously as like a sort of older young person. And I had a fucking blast. This movie's a lot of fun, man. I mean, it's dumb.
So much fun.
It's real dumb. And I'm still to this day not sure why Hollywood saw Bill Paxton as a leading man. He's a very charismatic guy, don't get me wrong, but the man could not deliver a line convincingly if his life depended on it.
He's the extreme, though.
Yeah, I mean, there was another Bill, an evil Bill, and he killed him.
Matt, you immediately did a better take of that than Bill Paxton did.
Leave the poor dead man alone.
Listen, I'm glad he was part of the Hollywood pantheon of folks. I enjoyed watching him, but also watching him in scenes where Philip Seymour Hoffman is playing one of the most ridiculous humans in the history of cinema, with more gravitas and natural humanity than Bill Paxton is able to muster, was something to behold, I must say.
Philip Seymour Hoffman came up with the like hood on, but nothing else kind of
Yeah.
gimmick.
Well, and this was one of his very first roles, Philip Seymour Hoffman. Like,
Yeah.
I was looking. This is real far down the IMDb, but you already see like hints of like Brandt from The Big Lebowski. You see his character from Boogie Nights is kind of there too. Like,
What year was Scent of a Woman? That was earlier, right? That was
95.
92.
Oh shit.
I remember he really pops in that, but quieter than this, obviously. But yeah. Okay, so Peter, what did you think, or what do you think?
Okay, so as a child, you're going to be shocked by this. Unnecessarily terrified of tornadoes, living in the suburbs of Detroit. I saw this, I think, on like TNT, like off and on, but like it was always one of those things where it was like I would watch every scene except for when a tornado hit, and then I'd just be like, okay, that's enough. I get the gist.
It's a fun driving movie.
Yeah, great road trip movie. Hey, I'm here for the steak and eggs.
Oh man,
That must have been an interesting experience being in Detroit, because like you weren't far from places where tornadoes happened. Like my mom.
Oh no, we had tornadoes. Like
Yeah.
We
we
had
had
tornadoes in Twister. In
What?
Detroit,
Yes.
sorry. You had tornadoes in Detroit.
Yeah, because I mean, Michigan is just flat, and so it's rare that the occasion arose. But like once a year, we would have a storm big enough that like a tornado watch / warning would happen, and it wasn't around Twister, but like some years after Twister, like I was home alone when one of those big storms hit, and like I freaked out, and I was like by myself, like with my cats in my basement alone with like a flashlight because the power was out. And my mom and my dad was out of town on a trip, and my mom and my little sister were locked inside the refrigerated area of a Wendy's, and they weren't able to like get they're in the walk-in of a Wendy's with the rest of the customers that were there, and they couldn't get home to me. So that was a formative experience for me, but that was also like
Damn.
well after Twister.
That explains a lot.
Well, that's why he never goes to Wendy's.
yeah. I mean,
well, Wendy's is a safe place because the Wendy's was okay.
yeah. You get your Frosty, you get your small fry.
And
you're
and
good.
I know that they have walk-ins big enough to accommodate tornado shelter. Like, it's great. That all being said, I thoroughly enjoyed the movie this go through. It was a lot of fun, and yeah, let's do it again.
We're about to. A couple days, you're going to be able to do it again. Matt,
They're just
what
in it
about
for
you?
the money, Frank. It's gonna be so hard not to just keep. Anyway,
We can do it.
I unapologetically love this movie. When we were kids, my brother was terrified of thunderstorms. Like you hear, and in Jersey, especially in the summers, you'd get rolling thunderstorms like every other day. So my dad, in his infinite wisdom, was very fond of immersion therapy. We also talked about situations in which, if he was afraid of a thing, he would watch the movie that was related to that thing. So aside from like getting my brother all these like kids' weather books of explaining like how cloud formations happen and all that sort of stuff, when Twister came out, it was a must-have film for us to keep in our collection. And it was like appointment watching for our family. We would watch that movie over and over again. So we had it on tape forever, and then we had it on DVD after that point. But it was very much like the movie that, of if we were all going to sit down in front of the TV and decide to watch a movie we'd seen before, Twister was in the top 10. So yeah. I've seen the movie many times. I had not seen it in, God, at least a decade. And I was both relieved and just pleasantly surprised that it still holds up for me, and that it's just still a solid banger of a summer action movie. Like it doesn't matter too much that Bill Paxton's acting is lukewarm. He has a lot of charisma, and I couldn't care less about the plot structure. But I think that as far as within the world of that story, everything makes sense, and that's really the most important thing for me. And it hits every beat it's supposed to. It's just it's very competently technically made, and that's something that I appreciate only more and more as the years wear on.
Some of those flying shots of cars driving are just so you didn't have to.
They're
put
my
in that
favorite.
They're my favorite shot. It's you and I have talked about this movie as like a high seas adventure where they treat these cornfields and these giant plains as these like wide oceans. It's amazing.
I was thinking about that. Like this movie is weirdly a swashbuckler with no swords.
Yeah,
Matt has said that. Matt has called this a swashbuckler before. Yeah, it really is. The score helps too, I think, with that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And directed by the inimitable Jan de Bont, who comes out of being a DP. So, like, the camera is his focus. Yeah, like...
And right off
from
of Speed.
From shooting Die Hard to directing Speed to directing this. Like,
yeah,
great run for our guy, Jan.
Yeah. From what I read, production was a shit show, and he was not the nicest person on set, so, like,
And then shortly thereafter, he went to go direct Speed 2, Cruise Control.
Hey, listen. I enjoyed that movie for what it was.
I
Sequel
don't
to Speed?
think I've really sat through all of Speed 2. We need to do Speed 2 at some point.
And a movie where Willem Dafoe is just chewing, well, in this case, the bulkheads of
covers
of
himself
that
in
cruise ship.
leashes, if I remember correctly.
I think so.
To treat his blood disease.
It's a whole thing, but that again, like I said, that's a movie I know will not hold up upon rewatch.
No.
But you know,
This is a movie that has a golden raspberry for worst written film grossing over $100 million.
Just one.
Just one. It was also nominated for worst supporting actress for Jamie Gertz, but she did not win.
Fuck that. My girl
fuck
Jamie
off.
did an amazing job.
She did. I honestly think she did a very solid job. But also won a BAFTA and was nominated for 2 Academy Awards and won neither. It won the BAFTA for best
wait, you're
visual.
talking about Twister. I thought you were still talking about Speed 2.
No. I'm talking about Twister. Yeah.
BAFTA award-winning Speed 2 Cruise Control.
That being said, I want to check that now.
Well, I'm curious. What did Twister lose to in the special effects category for the Oscars that year?
Oh, hold please.
96. Wait.
Because the entire premise of this movie comes from ILM just doing a test, like because they wanted to. Because they're like, wouldn't it be cool if we did a CG tornado? And then they created that little sequence, and then they were like, all right, well, now we have to write something around it, so let's hire Michael Crichton and his wife.
So there were only 3 nominees in the category. It was Twister, it was Dragonheart, and
Sorry.
Every time I close my eyes, it's Dragonheart. What the fuck?
but the winner, and I think the winner is correct.
Independence Day?
Is Independence Day.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
That was
Fair. Fine.
Okay.
That works.
Well played. But yeah, as far as like Twister being a special effects movie, I am still, even watching it last night, am in awe of the shit that they pull off. Just with like destroying God knows how many dozens of those Dodge Rams.
I want to revisit the Academy Awards again real quick because it was also nominated for Best Sound.
That makes sense.
Oh, did it win?
Did
it not win Best Sound?
No, it didn't win Best Sound.
Did it lose to Independence Day again?
It did not, but it was also in the category. The nominees were
The English Patient.
Evita, The English Patient,
Fuck
Independence Day, The Rock, and Twister. And guess who fucking won? The English Patient.
No, I pulled that out of my ass. Yes.
I thought you were on the Wikipedia.
No,
but yeah,
I
it was-
literally, I was like, what's a mid-90s, like,
Oscar bait.
room with a view type of whatever movie? And I was like, The English Patient.
Yeah, it was nominated for Best Sound, but not Best Sound Effects Editing.
Once you get into the technical stuff, I start to get lost in what the Academy decides they're
where
going
the line
to,
is.
Yeah. 'Cause
And
it gets stupid.
how people viewing the movie can vote
Yeah.
one way or the other. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't
Well,
know what it was, but watching it this time on the one that you have, Matt,
Yes.
man, this movie sounds incredible.
Holy shit, right?
It may be one of like the best sound mixes I've heard
It's
ever.
really good.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I really think
It's really
yeah.
good.
So I have a subwoofer that doesn't sit on the ground, but sits on like the bottom deck of an end table that's connected to my that like just touches the couch, like the arm of the couch touches the end table.
Uh-oh.
And
Like you're in the suck zone.
yeah, I was guys. At the risk of oversharing, I was very much in the suck zone. I felt this movie in my chest and other cavities of my body that I will not go into detail about. Felt the walls rattled, like the glass in the windows was shaking. And it's the first time I've experienced that with my particular sound system, and holy fuck, it was fantastic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the sound is almost to me more impressive than the visual effects at this,
I
especially
agree.
now as it's aged.
Yeah.
It is also it was the first VHS home release to be THX certified.
Huh. I didn't know that. I
And
didn't.
wasn't this also? I always have heard this is the first DVD. This was the first movie to come out on DVD.
Oh, I don't know. Like ever?
Yeah, ever. Or at least it's in that first batch.
That wasn't a
on
porno?
Wikipedia. No, on Wikipedia, all it says is it's notable for being among the first films to be released on DVD. But I have heard in the past this is considered the first DVD was Twister. And one more thing with the sound too with this. Well, first of all,
The
I
sound
didn't
is going
have
to be
to
its
do
own
that thing.
Yeah.
It's its own category. I don't even know how we're going to really convey it well with the compressed file, like podcast file we'll put up, but we'll see what we can do. But
Just
Okay,
up the base. of it.
so it is on the list. So these were the first DVDs ever released, and this is quite a batch.
it did it in one batch, so it's like a bunch. Okay.
So it's
Air Force One is one of them.
no.
Fuck. All right.
Sorry. Any other
English
guesses before I read?
patient.
No.
Are they all 96? Are they all 1996 movies?
No.
Interesting. I am only going to say it because it's the first DVD we owned, Forbidden Planet, but I'm pretty sure it's not.
Negative.
Wait,
No.
what? Do they say what year DVD started? 'Cause
It's like
that might help.
97.
Okay.
Titanic.
Titanic was not there. No.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. I'm very curious. You got to tell me because I'm
Yeah, you gotta just tell us because we're
There's 16 on here. So A Time
Jesus.
to Kill, Blade Runner, Eraser, Goodfellas, Interview with the Vampire,
Eraser.
The Road Warrior, Seven, The Birdcage, The Bridges of Madison County, The Fugitive, The Mask, The Wizard of Oz, Twister, Unforgiven, and Woodstock.
That seems
Oh,
just like
okay.
a random poll.
Random,
So-
yeah.
It's very random list.
it's
I mean,
a-
Wizard of Oz makes sense.
It's a
but-
random collection, but it makes a lot of sense. None of those movies were surprising. They were just not
No.
related to each other.
Yeah. None of them at the time would have been considered like all classics. You know what I mean?
No,
Yeah.
I mean
Well,
the Wizard of Oz.
I think you have a combination of movies that sort of just came out and could be scanned, and you do all the shit you need to do for a DVD,
will probably sell regardless of
and movies that are historical enough that like the behind the scenes featurettes were made in like 1963 or whatever.
if
And-
they had them.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Wizard of Oz. I remember having a VHS copy of Wizard of Oz that had behind the scenes stuff that played after the film.
I'm surprised like Top Gun isn't on here or like something. I remember like the first person that I knew that got like a really nice DVD setup and a really good sound system. Like their first purchase was Top Gun just to see like how loud they could crank their sound system, and
Yeah.
so there's nothing really like loud like that. But
Honestly,
Did you
moving
guys with my Twister copy? Did you guys have it? Was the like cardboard cover?
Yeah. Yeah.
Case?
The cardboard cover with the plastic clip.
Yeah, the little plastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's classic. Classic.
And then the little proof of purchase thing on the inside of the spine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yes, yeah, and the DVD that was both sides, there was no like print on it. It was just like this side for full screen, this side for widescreen.
And no matter what, you would put it.
You'd put the wrong one
because
because the label on top was actually what it had. Yeah, I know.
There was no
stupid.
standardization between.
We've all been burned. We've all. Yeah, it was like the.
It was the USB of its time.
Fuck! I was trying to make that exact joke. I was queued up for it. Last thing I'll say about the sound is not only just the quality of it, but like and this could so easily have been cheesier or just not done at all, but like giving the storms and the tornadoes a like monstrous but also like godlike destructive personification. Like there's a character to it. And I think Armageddon tries to do this with the asteroid, and that is one part that's just kind of cringy. But in this movie, it's like there's like vocals and choirs in the back, and like there's a piece where it's like you can feel the tornadoes reacting to what the storm chasers are doing, as if they're like vindictive Greek gods.
Yeah, and they did. I think they used a camel or something and warbled it to make the noise. But it reminds me of when we talked about. I think it was Backdraft when they did like leopard or whatever to give it that like to anthropomorphize the element of nature.
Yeah, they mixed in a bunch of like large predator roars and growls and the camel thing as well, just to make it feel more. Organic and predatory.
Yeah,
well, predatory for sure.
And that became kind of a thing. Like I think Twister, I don't know this for sure. I haven't done any research on it. I'm just going to talk. But I feel like Twister was the first film to do that in like this era of the 90s, and then that idea sort of spread to like say Armageddon and movies that came out afterwards, where it was like, oh yeah, let's incorporate some fucking roars into the sound design because. That's terrifying, and it worked with the TIE fighters.
The most sound design that I remember like that with like incorporating roars was when I think I watched a behind the scenes featurette on how they made the roar for like the T-Rex in Jurassic Park.
Yeah,
it was a lot of like an amalgamation, but very different to like try and recreate an animal versus a natural phenomenon.
Yeah, well,
which doesn't really have sound in a lot of ways. It's just wind, and it's probably just like
tornadoes have sound.
Dude, like other than just like this though, where there is a sort of like give and take and like a this is not how tornadoes sound.
My biggest problem with this movie is how fast the tornadoes come and go, because that's not how tornadoes work. But I've heard tornadoes described as like freight trains, and when I've been close enough to I was close enough once to hear one, and it does sound like a semi like going on the highway. Like you're like,
were you sure there wasn't just a semi in one of them?
Listen, who's to say? And the number of tractors that get thrown in this thing, but
the use of miniatures and debris and just dumping houses on things is oh god, I miss that in movies, of just how visceral a lot of those set pieces are, just by virtue of the fact that like you've got physical shit that you're just wrecking.
Yeah,
it's made of atoms.
Even that chunk of the movie where they're hiding in the drive-in and they're like down low in that like garage thing, and it turns into like basically Twister the ride from Universal Studios, where it's just like they're in one place and then shit just keeps crashing. The car is falling on them. The sign crashes down. Sparks fly. A hubcap becomes a frisbee of death and hits a guy in the head. Like it's just it's all, there's no CGI in that scene. It's just like great sort of like sets that can just be destroyed and then probably like inflated back up to where they were and reset for the next take. It was great.
Yeah, I know that the ant's house was on some sort of a compressor lift thing that they could use to like make it sort of half raise itself back up into that half destroyed state and then completely collapse again, so that they could do it a couple different times.
I'm with Connor, where I forgot that was such a big piece. I remember it's just like it's sad and they get her out, but like that is like a stressful part of the movie.
Just the fucking TV hanging off of the coax cable, and I was
Great
like,
bit.
I saw that, I was like, oh yeah, because you used to have to screw it into the TV. It wouldn't have just popped off.
And a dumber movie would have done the power cord.
Yes.
And the fact that it's an actual cord that I'm like, oh, I believe that would hold for at least a second or two.
Yeah.
That reminds me, there is some design work, physical design work in this movie that is. It's watching it again. This is one of those like I watched it on VHS as a kid. I'm watching it in HD as an adult. There's shit there that was not there in the VHS era that sort of like makes this movie like a 10. In one of the first scenes where they're like showing off all of the cars of the tornado chasing team, right? And the sedan or like station wagon of the group, they're sort of panning up or dollying up the hood of the car before they get to the windshield with the people in it, and there's dents from all the hail in it. And once I noticed that, there's all of the cars have dents from hail in it. Just, even if they haven't been in the big hail scene, it just sort of implies that these cars have been through the runner like that. And I love it when props people do that. It just makes me so fucking happy.
Their whole team is so well production designed. Like, one of the vehicles is a bus that they just retrofitted and like
I wouldn't know anything
took
about
the
that.
seats out like this. Yeah, it's but it's cool. They gave I wouldn't want a movie that like if they were to make a sequel where I know Bill Paxton passed away, but if they were to make like a Lego sequel with Paxton and Hunt, I would really miss the whole team not being there. As small as a lot of their roles are, it really filled out like the vibe of these like just clearly misfits from all these different places. None of them have backstories. I think one might have been a preacher. I don't know. There's like something there.
Yeah,
maybe he just sounds proper.
You gather it all by just their behavior and what they're dressed up as. Just like Star Trek's Alan Ruck's character is introduced by explaining you have to roll the maps. You can't crease the maps. You don't fold them, which is another whole thing of like, I love the map usage in this because like that's going to be non-existent in any movie that comes out.
I love that his whole job is to be the team GPS. That's so fucking cool.
Like it's insane. And then like him having to try, he's like, well, you got to go there. And just there's entire like back and forth dialogue that is tense. And you're in it with them of them trying to figure out the road path to meet up with the tornado or to avoid the tornado. Like it's nuts how much of the movie is taken up on that element and how it still works.
Well, and them as a team, that I love that scene of it's so stupid. It's so easily could have been cut out. I'm glad they didn't. Of just like everyone listening to their own music, but all of the pieces of music kind of fit together perfectly. Yeah. It's great. You just get a little bit there, a little like moment to get a sense of like how these like diverse, just to juxtapose them with like the stormtrooper-esque weatherman.
Oh yeah,
the evil weatherman.
Because they're just in
which
for the
I'm
money,
so
man.
happy there's an evil weatherman in this movie. It's
Back in
great.
1996, where the worst sin you could commit was selling out.
right.
That is so true. Like that is such a 90s thing where it's like you can't sell out to the man. You've got to be true to yourself. I'm like, how are any of you making money?
Yeah.
Like what are any of you doing for money? You
A lovely
vagabonds.
endowment from
And
the
what is
University of
selling out?
Oklahoma.
If you're not an artist, what is selling out and not selling out? If you're any other profession but art, like what are you doing?
Well, this was also the era where anybody that had a quote unquote normal job worked in like advertising. Because that was as close as like filmmaking people could get to like, what do you do in an office all day?
Yeah.
Selling us
It's
something
also-
else we don't need, man.
There's maybe a little bit of that, like that. There's that, like we're a year or so ahead of that, like big corporate rebellion in movies with like Office Space and even The Matrix or Clock Watchers. There's a million movies that come out in the second half of the 90s that kind of like deal with that. But I think this is definitely part of it. And I also just like, I wish we got Cary Elwes as a villain more because this and the Jungle Book, the Stephen Sommers Jungle Book, he's just like full on like oozing just hateability. I love it.
Yeah, he's just a prick. And like he is a prick from start to finish in this movie. And so it is one of those situations where like he never like did anything terrible or wrong, but you still feel a little cathartic when he dies.
No, he would never like. He's never trying to actually harm anyone.
No,
but he's just not helping anyone. And then yes, his like such a satisfying death, and like a great like, I like that stuck in my head for years. Was like a couple, like you were saying, Connor, a couple of images, especially like the dad in the intro getting yanked out.
Mm-hmm.
I cried as a kid when that happened a lot. I screamed. But then like Carrie Elwes's van like crashing into the wheat field,
and the driver Eddie getting fucking Final Destination with that,
right?
Sure did, yeah.
like homeboy did not deserve that. Fuck,
He did not.
Yeah,
and I was
he lived, right?
No.
Oh no, that Eddie. No. Sorry, I was thinking of the other guy. No. I thought you were talking about the guy who gets hubcapped across the brain.
Oh, Eric Clapton? Yeah, no, he's fine.
Yeah, no, he lived, yeah.
No, Eddie got Eddie got real.
Eddie got a radio tower through his chest.
Yeah.
Eddie turned into Play-Doh.
All right, RSVP Eddie.
It's funny because in my mind that there is in my
RSVP.
Forget it. It's fine.
He's coming to the party. He's coming to the function. In my memory, there is an extra shot that is cut out of, I don't know, reality, where Carrie Elwes has a moment of looking at Eddie with the radio tower through his chest before they explode in horror.
Oh God.
I think there is a shot, like there's like for a microsecond, there's
I think there may be
just enough.
I think
There's like a little bit, yeah.
I think there may be.
I think your brain is doing it. I think your brain's just picturing him screaming in that passenger seat.
I think there may be a few frames because there are a couple of cuts in there that are like 2 or 3 frames, you know, in that sequence that my child brain extended out to like a full on like second.
Yeah. And one of the things that speaking of like cuts and edits in the film, is everybody aware that this film has been modified on the version that's streaming?
No.
And other versions.
Where?
I think it's on HBO Max now or Hulu. It's one of the Warner Brothers, whatever. But Twister was rated PG-13 when it came out, but it has more than the allotted number of fucks in it.
I noticed
and
that.
There's some exceptionally violent sequences. So there are versions that they have modified that have excised all of the extra F-bombs and some of the more intense storm violence. And the urban legend, I was just speaking with actually a coworker. We were both talking about Twister. And I have to go back to my copy to see if I have it. If you have the R-rated version, apparently in the first intro sequence where you see Philip Seymour Hoffman's character, he doesn't have any pants on and you can see his junk.
No way.
I don't know. I didn't. This is urban legend.
Is this potentially the version that you showed us?
This is potentially the version that I have.
I feel like that's the thing I would have noticed.
Yeah. Right?
Because I did notice when Helen Hunt says "fuck me,"
yeah,
at the very beginning.
I noticed that.
Where like obviously they dropped the audio out, so you can't actually hear her say it, but you can see her say it, and they leave just enough of an implication that that's what she's saying.
Yeah.
I rolled. See what my DVD is now.
Admittedly, I rolled it back like 3 or 4 times to confirm that that's what I was hearing.
Yeah. I mean, it's the Galaxy Quest thing.
Yeah.
For anybody who's familiar with that edit. But yeah, I mean, I think we were talking about it earlier. It was supposed to be an R-rated movie, but then they just gave it PG-13. It
probably the right move because it's made a ton of money. Yeah.
It did get my favorite description by the MPAA.
Oh, I know this. Yeah.
Where the hell was it? Hold on. Motion, yes, due to intense depiction of very bad weather.
An understatement.
It's fun. It's funny.
I mean, but it is that thing where it's like legally, there's no reason, there's nothing on screen that you shouldn't have a kid see. But like, this is a lot of movie for anyone, too young. Like,
Yeah.
Especially
I mean, I
considering
watched
that
it
Get it.
7.
especially considering it's a thing that can actually happen. Like,
True.
you know, I grew up in Northern Virginia, and we had to do a tornado, not evacuation,
Drill.
but like, not a drill, not a drill. It was like there was like.
It was like
There was
cover
hella
in
weather
place.
going on outside, and we
Yeah.
had to like go into the hallways away from the windows.
Yeah, you go in front of your
Yeah.
lockers and you cover your head. Yeah, yeah. We had to do that a couple times. Guys, in what world? Well, actually, I have a point of clarification because I think I just missed this. Like, why on earth did Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt split up in the first place?
I think it's very clear why they split up. I think they were just they bicker the whole time. They're just always going to be fighting, and we want to see them together, but
I got
they're
two.
going to be
I
miserable.
got 2 words for you, Peter.
Tell me.
Toxic masculinity.
Oh,
That whole
again.
That whole fight that they have. That whole fight that they have in her truck during the first tornado chase.
The scene that scene where they're in the car. That one scene.
That one scene.
Just the
well,
one.
but before Helen Hunt's truck is destroyed and they move over into his truck, and they're arguing while trying to chase down the tornado, and they have a beautiful moment where Helen Hunt says, "Do you want me to drive?" And Bill Paxton says no, and Helen Hunt's response is, "Well, then would you please?" Before they hit a combine.
Right.
That's fucking fantastic. Turns out I learned Joss Whedon did some passes on this script, and that was
Yeah.
a Joss Whedon moment.
Complicated figure in cinema history.
Sometimes good filmmakers are bad men.
Frequently.
But like in that conversation, he says like, "What about like getting married and having a house and being supportive and yada yada yada?" Like he was expecting her at some point to be like wifey, and
Sure.
that character ain't gonna be fucking wifey. And if you're with her, you should know that, my guy.
Well, that's the thing because for him for Bill Paxton to walk away from Helen Hunt, I'm like, sir,
On what planet?
sir.
I mean,
When you strike gold, you stop. That was just the whole time. Just thinking, I was like, how do you fumble that so hard?
yeah. Well,
Are you saying that Helen Hunt is as good as it gets?
I'm saying
you motherfucker, you know what you did.
Connor is quite mad about
She
you right
at
now.
the very
I
least
was
she's what
trying to
women
work him
want.
mad about you. Shit.
One of the things that I found interesting about her character, though, is that because of her character, it almost feels like you could gender flip it, and there's that same very like it would have been the traditional like
Career.
old trope of the obsessed guy out in the wild with his crazy group of friends who won't settle down,
Yes.
chasing storms.
And you almost expect that, right?
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like Joe Harding, Helen Hunt's character, is the main character of this movie.
Oh God, yes.
You know, like
Well, it starts with her. It's about her trauma.
yeah,
And yeah, absolutely.
but because of like the weird gender politics of the '90s, like they try to frame it like it's Bill Paxton's / Bill Harding's movie. Which, by the way, was anybody distracted by the fact that every other character in this movie refers to Bill Paxton as Bill throughout the whole movie?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Matt, not so
I didn't
much.
mind
Good. Okay. I had a few moments of laughing just thinking that this was a movie about Bill Paxton, the actor who was chasing tornadoes.
When
But I
he
think you're-
died, the storm chasers, there's apparently this thing that they do when other storm chasers die. They ride all of their caravans in the formation of the initials of the person who's died. And the time they did it for Bill Paxton was the only time they did it for someone who was not a storm chaser.
That's
That's
adorable.
cool.
That's cool.
Probably because
Great.
a sizable percentage of those people got into it because of
Yeah.
this movie.
Yeah, I would think this is kind of like Top Gun for weather
Storm chasers.
meteorologists.
Yeah.
I mean, it
100%.
spawned a whole cottage industry. Like, I mean, how many times on the Weather Channel or whatever have you seen just like hour-long episodes of just crazy people riding into hurricanes and all sorts of stuff? All that kind of just came from Twister and the cottage.
Well, there were those guys that built that like tank thing that would drive into the fields of Tornado Alley and had like augers that would dig into the ground to secure them to the ground so they wouldn't get sucked up and picked up and thrown.
Jesus Christ.
Which is a piece of technology that is in the new fucking Twisters movie.
I was gonna say, I think I saw that in the trailer of the new Twister movie.
But also those guys in the tank fucking died a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. They got picked up, thrown, and died. So that's
I don't feel that bad. Like you drove into a tornado.
I mean, I'm not.
But I'm starting to think that this movie might have even at least amplified the like. Do you know nowadays how you have the one weather guy out in the field like getting pelted by rain or wind? I'm like, I don't really remember that before the mid 90s. So like maybe this movie kind of upped the like, we gotta make them feel the intensity of this, and like that's kind of I mean, it's old now, but it was like a new thing at the time with weather reporting in real life.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, this movie had me thinking about Sandy a lot.
Yeah, I did too, actually. Yeah,
because I was thinking about like low pressure weather events, and hurricanes are similarly low pressure. And,
oh yes.
Preparing for Sandy to arrive, I was riding my bike on Broadway somewhere in the northern Manhattan where we lived, and having to work extra hard to get over a hill and feeling the breath being sucked out of my lungs while I was breathing because there was so little air in the air because it was all being sucked into the hurricane that was about to hit us. Which is something that I thought about anytime our heroes were in proximity to the tornado. Just like, they're just going to pass out, right?
I mean, it takes some artistic license with
For sure.
how much our characters and their trucks are able to withstand.
I don't know how they can open their eyes inside of a tornado. That was what I was thinking. Was like,
Yeah.
just I can't even stare at my air conditioner. Like, I also just like the simplicity of what really is the plot, because they're not just randomly chasing tornadoes. There's a specific scientific thing they're trying to do with a good cause behind it. So you're rooting for them to kind of accomplish that. You understand the character point of view of why Helen Hunt would be so obsessive and like relationship ruining in a lot of ways to go after this. But then the idea of the Dorothy machine and how they basically were like, and I think this is a real piece of tech that they had already done or were
In the
about to do or
80s,
something.
it was
In the
called
80s,
Toto.
Toto,
Amazing.
Noah did it, and they never got it to work, unfortunately.
But can we talk about Dorothy for a second, because I don't think they thought through the design entirely well.
No.
Because like I kept on waiting for them to just like have a mechanism to get it off the truck faster. The fact that you have to get out of the truck as a tornado is like 100 yards away from you, and just like not even like there's one scene where apparently it's light enough that Paxton and Helen Hunt were able to just lift it off themselves, and it's like I don't know if that's right. Or like, why couldn't they just like throw the balls into the tornado? Like I don't know.
Because then the movie wouldn't happen, Peter.
Well, I'll say too, what I thought this time was they mentioned that there's 4 of them. So they're basically like, oh, we get 3 failures and then a win.
Yeah.
And they have to they have to predict where the tornado is going to go to put the thing in front of it. Mm-hmm. And I thought this time watching, I'm like, why don't you attack the tornado at the same time with all 4, and one of you will be in the way? Like they only ever have one truck. The fact that the rest of them are following is great. There's stuff they're doing, but like, you got enough people. There's some people sitting in the passenger seats. You can definitely have more than one Dorothy like positioned. I guess, I don't know. The movie wouldn't happen, but
it's a fair point. Or like, again, just like
put those things on a catapult and like launch it into the tornado. Like, I don't know.
I mean, they didn't have the money for that.
I love you.
They spent it all on
I
the
love
laptops.
you went catapult and not like not a.
Well, like,
why
if-
wouldn't you drop it over the tornado from a plane?
But if the new movie doesn't have like drones,
Oh, it
I'm
does.
like, what are we even doing here?
It very much
Yeah.
does. I watched the trailer last night again and was just as angry as I was the first time I watched it.
I will say, I've become a big fan of Glen Powell, and I hope he has all the success in the world.
Sure.
I mean, he's already a far more charismatic force than Bill Paxton ever was. So
Hey,
I hope he kills us. Has anyone seen Hitman?
Yes, he's great.
He's very enjoyable in Hitman.
Very, very, very
Katie
good.
watched it, yeah, and she enjoyed him
Yeah.
in that. I mean, I liked him in Top Gun. I liked him, but he was in something else too, or I can't remember what
The other movie that just came out was Anyone But You with Sydney Sweeney, which is not a great movie, but he is okay in that movie.
Just charisma flying in both directions, and in that, it's like Hot People the movie.
Yeah,
It's
it is.
just like
Yeah.
Very much
It's
is.
like what if all we just it's like when you're in like an RPG, you're like, what if I put all of my stats into hotness and nothing
Exactly.
else, and
Yeah.
you get Anyone But You. Yeah, I just like that I love when a movie's like successfully comes up with a believable reason to continuously put yourself in harm's way for the sake of entertainment. Like so easily this could have been the fact that at no point you're like, well, no, you just stopped going after the tornadoes. Like no, like you never really, that thought never really enters your head. You're always, and part of it is just the breakneck pace of, like, for a movie in 1996, this is like as high octane as you can get, even though it's not like a violent movie. Like it's just constantly driving, constantly speeding, constantly flying. Like there's so few slow scenes, and there's so few scenes like not traveling at
Yeah.
any speed. You don't really get a chance to do anything but enjoy yourself.
It's like mid '90s Mad Max.
Yeah,
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, it kind of is.
Yeah, fascinating.
Also, probably the best action movie that doesn't have any like violence in any
Yeah.
way. Any like no guns, no swords.
Violent, yeah, people, no people on people violence. There's plenty of violence
Yes.
in Twister,
Yes.
but this is very much a man versus nature conflict.
Well, it begs
Yeah,
the question: why do you even need like the bad guys in the first place? Like the
Peter,
other
shut the fuck
science
up. You need
cryptids?
Jonas Miller because. Well,
Because he's in it for
Frank
the
will
money.
not
Peter.
countenance an attack on Carrie Elways.
It's
He might
just-
listen to
well,
you go on about Bill Paxton.
Look,
but
if he actually did it in a British accent, maybe I would give a damn. But since he's doing his bullshit like fake ass Oklahoma accent, why the fuck do I care?
I love how some words are British. Like, a couple of them, I think. Yeah, he drops a few. That's
the
definitely
Carrie
like,
Elways
used.
special. You're always going to get a little bit of Brit, and you're American.
yeah,
Yeah, I saw
You know,
that.
a
Connor,
little bit of
like,
milk in your
behind you.
tea. Yeah.
Looks like an F2.
F2.
You don't need you absolutely don't need the villain, but like it's so funny they came up with a villain, and then just that stupid speech Bill Paxton gives introducing him. Like we haven't met him. He's just driving. Bill Paxton is like, no, you're gonna hate this guy before he even gets a chance to convince you of what
Yeah.
he's doing.
No, that guy. Fuck that guy.
Jonas, son of a bitch.
Who is that, honey?
Jonas Miller, he's a nightcrawler. We all started out in the same lab, then Jonas went out and got himself some corporate sponsors. He's in it for the money, not the science.
I also just love the two convoys like passing each
and
other and on the roads and
and they have the competing machines, and one has the spheres inside, the other has cubes. Like it's
yeah,
so
it's so funny.
Instead of a school bus, they have like an RV from 1964.
yeah.
Yeah. I
But
love that one scene too where they come out of out of a field onto a road, and the other convoy's right there, and both of them get pissed off at
Oh,
the other one
yeah.
because they're both just like,
Where's the
and it's
highway?
every one vehicle after another, they keep like zippering into each other, and they keep like
It's great.
almost crashing. It's an amazing little piece of action. It's just fun, and a lot of also I love the Yondamat does this like 2 or 3 times in the movie where he's like flying over the field, and like one road goes this way in the foreground and cars are driving, and then another road goes this way in the background, and he passes the first one and goes to the other, and like just the timing of these vehicles, and they're kind of simple shots, but like
They're the most impressive.
geography. Well, because it could so easily, you'd be like, well, I'm not really sure where everybody is in relation to each other, but like to go out of your way, it's like all of those big miniature shots in Helm's Deep, where you're like, I really need this sense of geography to understand these pieces. It's such a great use of going the extra mile.
Guys, you know what I could really go for right now? Steak and eggs.
Food.
Oh,
Food.
food.
We didn't even talk about her. She's a gem.
She's wonderful.
She's always a gem.
Suki's grandma.
Lois Smith.
Lois Smith.
A woman who I have met and is lovely.
And who's still
Really?
alive.
Yeah.
She's 93.
I checked that too. I was worried. Yeah.
Yeah, she
Well,
was.
she was just in. What was she just in? She was just in The French Dispatch.
No, that food sequence is great. I dream about that dollop of mashed potatoes being slammed onto a plate. Like that. Speaking of core memories, like I am always looking for that exact dollop of mashed potatoes when I have mashed potatoes.
That gravy.
You know what I mean?
Gravy.
That gravy.
Color
Oh,
of gravy
that
is
gravy,
the ideal color of gravy.
And the way that
Yeah.
Philip Seymour Hoffman very gently but enthusiastically serves Jamie Gertz, like all of the elements of this meal, where he's just like, "No, you're gonna love this. No, you're gonna love this.
I love
no,
that
you're
he
gonna
just
love
like
this."
takes care of her in general while Bill Paxton is just out to lunch.
They're so
Yeah.
good.
It's
together.
so
Yeah.
cute.
It's so ambiguous because it's not like lecherous on Philip Seymour
No.
Hoffman's
No.
No.
part.
He's just like, I want to make sure you have a good time and you know what's going on.
Right, but like it's also the way he plays it, and I don't know if this is on purpose or if this is me just projecting. Every acting choice he makes could be perceived as caring or lecherous.
Yeah.
You know, like every time he grabs her face, right? You know, he does that like 4 or 5 times, and like makes kind of deep eye contact with her. That could be like, we might kiss right now, or it could be like, I'm looking very hard to make sure that you're okay.
Yeah.
And that's just because Philip.
Well, he's also like just projecting his own joy onto, like, he's like, it's such a one-sided relationship in a good way, where he's just sort of like, your like neuroticism is not going to dissuade like how much fun I'm going to try to get you to have.
Right.
They're really fun. Also, just comment on her in general of how utterly fucked over she gets in this movie.
Yeah. But she knows
she's
when
kind
to
of the
walk
hero.
away. She's just like, you know what, I'm done. This is not going to end well, and I'm
with their
going
head
home.
held high.
Well,
Yeah.
and like speaking of like the sort of gender flip nature of this movie, like she is the douchebag boyfriend of every romantic comedy that the heroine has to let go of so she can be with the good guy.
The city slicker therapist constantly on the phone with poor Donald
Right.
about his penis.
But I'm so
Right, but also,
this
like-
is also that era where like having a cell phone told you about a character,
Right.
You know,
Yes.
But also at the same time, like she's not a douchebag. She's not like she's not a bad person. She's actually quite a good person who
she's a great person.
reads
She's probably the best person in the movie,
right.
Like,
and she like reads the
morally.
situation accurately and was like, I'm going to be emotionally honest about this. From what I see of this dynamic, I understand you, Bill, better than I did before we did this, and I'm I'm gonna walk away for both of our sakes. And honestly, I'm gonna walk away for all 3 of our sakes because this woman is still in love with you. The scene where she's staring down Helen Hunt in the diner.
Oh, where they abjectly fail the Bechdel test at minute 24 of Twister? Yes, I took note of that.
Yeah, but it's true. Yeah, that part a little rough. But the way that Jamie Gertz plays reading Helen Hunt and understands the dynamic and is not judgmental and is not jealous, she is analytical, and like understands that she is invested in the situation, but she's not like, I'm gonna take this bitch down. She's just like, this is her problem. You know?
Yeah.
And
Helen Hunt pays for her lemonade, so there's that, I guess.
And Helen Hunt plays being read like that so beautifully and subtle, where she's just like, I'm not going to engage in that. We're not having that conversation here. We're not doing that.
It's very natural.
She does a good job. And Helen Hunt, honestly, like, kind of a surprisingly low amount of lines in this movie, really. It seems like she might, but, like, she doesn't talk a lot. There's a lot of, like, just her expressions and her faces and how much she's also, like, having to have an expressive performance as a character who's burying things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like,
it's a really thankless. I don't think she gets a lot of credit for like how crafted her performance actually is in this movie.
And
it's great.
I would agree. She doesn't talk much because she doesn't need to.
The way she plays the aloofness of the divorce papers, I think, is excellent. The fun of the like, well, like what's the big deal? Like she's clearly like you can pick up on all the subtext of it. You don't even need a scene later, like telling you how she's really feeling. It's great.
Yeah, you only get it in the one moment where she's alone with her aunt, and they.
Yeah.
But even then, it's not necessarily this outpouring of emotion. It's just like, God damn it, this is a frustrating situation that I'm in, but that I can't be open about in front of anybody else.
Yeah, for sure.
Which is, again, just endears you to the aunt character.
I mean, she's so good. I kept thinking of her scene, the one scene in Minority Report that she absolutely just destroys. It's like so. I can't believe she's. I mean, she's got a great career, but I can't believe there's not more iconic roles that I can think of with her. Like, there's not more like of those scenes of her just like stealing a movie by being like the elder statesman in one scene.
Yeah, that's fair. I do actually genuinely enjoy her in True Blood as Sookie's grandmother.
Yeah, she's fucking great.
I think she has that same kind of attitude, and I think that it's great as a character actor to have those moments, especially in a lot of fairly bigger pieces of media that have come out in the last 25 years.
She also has a very, very long, deep, storied theater career. She's like a New York theater lady that's been doing.
Which makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
New York theater lady shit for like,
forever,
70 years or whatever. Yeah.
Which is funny because she clearly has the professionalism of it and the talent, but none of the other tells of like, you can spot a theater actor, even great ones, like Anthony Hopkins or like a lot of these guys who you're like, well, you came from theater, you're one of the best actors of all time, but I can see you started on the stage. With her, she's just like such a natural, like stuttery and like
she
the way
knows how to
like,
turn it
so
down
realistic.
when the camera's right there. You know what I mean?
For context,
also,
her,
like,
first, her first film was 1955.
Wow.
So she's been playing both mediums for a long time.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, she had to be a kid. Like, she had to be like...
She was born in 1930.
Holy
25.
Smokes.
She's great in it. I will forever remember the line, "Honey, your car is in a tree across the street."
Oh, her reaction too is great. Where she's like, she's just inconvenienced.
Yep.
As if she's like, oh, and I know what tree too.
But like everything leading up to that too, like we were talking about how much we love the team and like the team, like the team dynamic and the team energy. The rest of the team arriving to support Bill and Helen Hunt, Joe, to get Aunt Meg out of the collapsing house. Like the way they work together, the way that's like, you go get an ambulance, throw me the flashlight. Philip Seymour Hoffman being the first person to be through the window, like not be the fucking goofball in the situation, like suddenly turn on being a serious person in a serious situation. That's one of my favorite like cinematic moments. It doesn't happen very often. It reminds me a little bit of like in Ghostbusters when Peter Venkman was like, oh shit, Sigourney Weaver is actually possessed. I guess I have to use the knowledge that I have as a parapsychologist to try to deal with the situation. But the way that like Philip Seymour Hoffman like charges up the roof to like start the rescue of that situation, the difference between like, them being super goofy and screaming out their windows to various musics as they're chasing a tornado to being very serious and taking care of the situation that like professionals is a Hollywood trope that I get it makes me cry. It makes me cry. I'll be honest. It makes me cry.
It's played so somberly and serious that the movie's almost being like, shame on you for having as much fun as you had. Like, it's a little, for real, it's a little bit like, hang on. Like,
yeah, it is.
You need to,
it brings
before we
it
go
home.
into the final big scene, like, you have to know why this is important. And you have to know what this does to people. And especially, like, when Helen Hunt looks out the window and kind of sees her family in that weird, like, almost, I paused for a second. I'm like, did they get the actors back, or they just look really similar and they're wearing the same clothes? It was it's like a very much needed sort of like, this is real. This is like not just the coolest job you can think of.
It's a well-constructed story to keep you interested and also help you understand stakes in a way that is not exposition bullshit vomit.
Yeah.
And in a way that you're just experiencing the very high highs and the very low lows of what it is to sort of be in this world of storm chasing, at least in the universe of this story.
There is one moment where Aunt Meg says to Helen Hunt, like, go and stop this from happening again.
Yeah.
That is that kind of cheesy that you were talking about, Matt, but is again delivered by Lois Smith, and who's
works.
Fantastic. Yeah, it works. And I was thinking about like why that would work in 1996 and would not work in like 2024. Like, that line would fall so flat and make people laugh today.
Because people don't give a shit.
I think people are just less inclined to sort of like trust a movie so wholeheartedly that by the time you get to that line, you're not.
No one wants to lean into the movie like that anymore because, we're still suffering from how Guardians of the Galaxy broke everything in big movies. Like, you can't take anything seriously anymore now.
Yeah.
And if you have a serious moment, you have to let the air out of it with a joke or a gag at the end. We're still in that phase for the most part. Like,
yeah, and I feel like Hollywood's gotten nervous with these types of scenes, so they play it safe, where it's like, I mean, all of the like serious scenes you see in movies now are kind of the same couple types of scenes. There isn't really like the cheesiness of this movie like goes out on a limb with like how dramatic it plays some of this stuff. That's like could have had egg on its face if it didn't hit properly. I mean, all the scenes are like what should go where, but the how cranked up it is.
Well, and that's something that changed in the editing bay, because the opening sequence where you see Joe's family get hit by the tornado was supposed to be cut in the middle of the movie as a flashback.
Really? Oh,
and they decided to just front load it, and that, I think, to me, is what sets the whole tone of like, this is how dead serious this situation is. So we're going to get goofy a little later, but we are setting it up immediately as a life or death situation.
I would never in a million years have thought they didn't always know that was going to start that movie. It's such a good, powerful scene. Still to this, even watching it now, like when he gets ripped out, like you just are, your heart wrenches because you just don't expect an actor to be like hoisted up that high that fast.
In my memory, her dad just sort of like disappears into the darkness. I didn't remember him getting sort of absorbed by the CGI tornado the way that he was.
Yeah.
Which is a very small difference in this viewing, but was weirdly effective, especially given how not super well the CGI has aged in the last almost 30 years.
I chalk that up to like VHS quality versus what we have now.
That makes sense, yeah.
Because I'm sure if you did a side-by-side comparison, it'd be a very different. Like, I don't think you go back on YouTube and see what VHS was. It's like,
oh yeah, no, it's just a nebulous black background probably in the when you're looking at it in 360i.
480,
essentially.
Is 480 right?
Oh, it was Powell 360. Some one of them was 360. I feel like, but
it all varied. But 480 is the place to start.
VHS is 480.
We watched it a few times, so it is
DVD
degraded by that.
The thing is, on CRTs, they're not actually pixels; they're a different thing.
Yeah.
But 480 is the place.
The equivalent. Yeah. I still get chills to this day. I know exactly every beat of the film. I know how it ends. I know what happens to every character. But like damn it if I'm not tensing up in every sequence in this movie.
I think we need to go out on just touching on the most famous scene in the movie that is like was all over the marketing, that is still like the thing that I associate with this movie, and that is the cow flying past.
Also,
as you're
yes.
driving through. Yeah, that's all. I just wanted to talk about the cow.
Well, and the fact that as is my favorite genre of music being movie scores, one of my favorite pieces of music, period, is just titled Cow.
I'll put the drop in. I know the exact part of the track you're talking about. I'll put it in here. This track is called Cow, and this is the music from it.
Yeah, it's insane, and how like this Mark Mancina delivered a score that is well beyond the purview of what this movie was asking for.
One of the best action. You could put this in any action movie.
Yes.
Score, and it would work perfectly. Instead, it's here. It's
I
so
would not
good.
be surprised if at some point this was some sort of a temp track for like Pirates of the Caribbean.
I mean,
Oh yeah, probably. I'm sure they used parts in there. But yeah, that cow scene's so funny because it feels like that cow scene was like, it's so iconic, but you watch it and you're like, I don't think they thought this was going to be a famous scene. I think it's just like a moment.
It's a gag.
It's, you know, sometimes there's a scene where you're like, I think they are clearly like, this is the money scene. And other times you're like, I'll be back.
Yeah.
James Cameron talks about it. He's like, that's just because he's about to be back. Like, it's not supposed to be this like big moment.
But it made it into the trailer, and therefore it made it into pop culture.
Well, and same thing with the cows. Like it's so crazy that a cow is going to get sucked up into a twister, and that's like the thing that you're going to see. But it's also like sort of the entree into like, hey, we're just goofing around.
Yeah.
We're just goofing around with some cows.
Yeah.
Another cow? No, I think that's the same one.
Same cow. Apparently, the CGI
I gotta go. We
model-
got cows.
So fucking
That makes the scene.
so fucking Joss Whedon.
Yeah.
The least surprising fact I've learned in the last, I don't know, say month was that Joss Whedon did a couple of passes on this script.
Yeah.
He was in the zone. He really
Well,
was.
and that but the core memory stuff that's the cows spinning around, but also driving through the house and Bill Paxton's,
I
I would
love the
say,
house.
pitch perfect delivery of "We're going in."
Yeah.
That performance
It's-
is only pitch perfect if he's playing the Marine from Alien 2. Somehow transported back in time.
The last note I have that I wrote down that there's not much to talk about. I just want to say I wrote down Knife Barn.
Who are these people?
They're
Great
fucking
segment.
farmers. Farmers have knives.
That's some Texas Chainsaw shit there. Like you
But
don't
that
need
is
that many
so-
reapers. Like
It's such a funny moment.
And the,
you know,
and
so-
the response, the immediate response, that Bill Paxton just looks around and he just goes, "I don't think so."
yeah, that's great. Great finale, great escalation the whole way through the movie. And last thing I'll say is only the second cringiest Pepsi marketing they've ever done. So
what's
What's
the
the
first?
first?
Kendall Jenner with that.
Oh.
The like saving everyone, like bringing everyone together.
Yeah.
That was pretty bad. Yeah.
That's
She
bad.
like pours Pepsi into the
Yeah.
barrel of a gun or whatever the fuck. she's-
I
know.
don't even think I saw that.
You missed that? That was That's like 10 years old now.
It was
but
a moment.
Yeah.
you should
God,
YouTube it. It's like a it's like a Pepsi commercial that is just.
I
the
did
worst.
develop a weird, not weird, but just like a little bit of a phobia of like handling the edges of aluminum cans because of that scene, and just seeing the damage it does if you just are touching the edges of it in the wrong way after you've cut it.
That is fascinating how often they cut to a close up of a person's
Right?
hand who is clearly just bleeding. Like that's not a gag, that's not a special effect. That's just somebody who has busted their knuckles open.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I
But
respect.
it sells the whole thing. Yeah, it's great. I get that's another plot point of just like, well, why didn't they have spinny fly things to begin with? It's like, well, then we wouldn't have the scene with Pepsi.
Yeah.
Saving the day.
All you needed was Bill Paxton's leg kicking in a vending machine, and then I would believe that they're all Pepsi. The fact that they're all Pepsi is so crazy.
Yeah, that is true.
You need like a vending machine, like during the drive-in movie theater.
Yeah.
You need like a
Yeah.
soda machine that
Yeah.
like tips over and a bunch of cans fall out and they all take them and like
Well,
Yeah.
what's crazy is Pepsi owns like half of the soda brands. Pepsi could have given them a bunch. They didn't have to all just be the Pepsi can. It could have been
this
Sierra
was
Mist.
96. I forget what they owned and what they didn't at that point.
Well, there's
but-
also there's brands versus company where it's sort of like, is it the
Yeah,
Pepsi
yeah,
brand
yeah.
making this deal, or is it the is it PepsiCo making this deal? Even though in like small town Oklahoma it would all be Budweiser.
yeah,
and they're
and it would be
soft drink
bottles.
vending machines.
No, but it would have been like we'll go to the local bar out back, are 4 trash cans full of empty Budweiser cans.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I mean that would have been telling, but
Yeah. You know.
and just I guess my only last note is my introduction to The Shining was watching it being projected on an F4 tornado.
Same.
Probably mine too.
That
yeah.
effect is fucking
great moment.
That effect fucking rules.
I love it.
That's pretty good.
Of speaking core memories and moments of just like visual. This movie is chock full of just like frames that you could pull and just put on your
Yeah.
wall, and that are just or sequences that like I could stare at for an hour and still enjoy.
Yeah.
Because they're just there's everything about it is just enthralling.
They also so easily could have put Wizard of Oz on the drive-in screen. I'm so glad they went with the Shining.
Yeah.
Because they did just the right amount of Wizard of Oz references. And
Yeah.
it's the dog at the beginning, Dorothy. And there's one or two other very subtle ones.
Well, and
but
because this was a co-production between Universal and Warner Brothers, like, one of them owned the rights to The Shining.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Yeah.
it works. The drive-in horror movie and the monster comes in and
Well,
it's
The idea that the audacity of a scene where a tornado sneaks up on people.
sneaks up on Jack Nicholson.
Right, where it's just sort of like it's going on in the background. You can't see it until it's backlit by the lightning. That's fucking genius. That's some Jaws level shit.
Yeah.
yeah, really is great.
It's oh god, it's a great film. I don't care that Roger Ebert said that if you're looking for a thinking movie, think again. But
It does take a
This is
little bit
one
of
of those-
effort to make it a thinking movie, but we got there.
yeah,
It's one of those movies where it's like, I agree with everything the movie does. The only criticism I can understand is you didn't like how dialed up the cheesiness is of that specific moment, or that the like overtness of it. But every beat, I'm like, that's what goes there. Then this is what goes here. The scene where he's holding her in the hailstorm and it's really sad and emotional is like really cringy and like, you got me, Joe, I'm back. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay. But that is the scene that goes there.
you know that
You know?
that's the problem.
Yeah.
That's an overall Jan de Bont problem too, where it's sort of like
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, when English is your second language, you're not gonna you're gonna get the cars right.
I do love that about an English as a second language director, where it's sort of like this is where it goes in the form, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
This is where this belongs.
It's almost Verhoeven at times.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
definitely
A little bit.
It is, yeah. I mean, that was the other person I was thinking of.
I'm excited for Twisters. I'm
We'll
excited.
see.
I'm not. I think I'm on the record that
Yeah,
this feels like a terrible idea.
I'm glad that it's a standalone and that it should virtually have virtually nothing to do with the original cast and story. But I think that one of the great parts of the original Twister's charm is it was shot on location with a lot of CGI and a lot of like crazy ILM effects, but mixed in with like physical practical effects that helped you believe that what you were seeing was real. And I don't think that you can pull off that magic trick if you're just gonna put people in the volume.
I've seen most people like. No one's raving about it, but most people are like, "That's okay. That's good." Like
That's
like
the
people
state
like it more than they
big
dislike
budget
it.
movies right now. It's just like, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah.
I'm gonna forget
Yeah,
about
but
it
I'll
in
take
2
that
minutes.
over like.
It's less. I liked it and more surrender.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It
there are a
exists.
lot
I
of
do
like
blame
that was
a
3 stars. I'm not watching it again.
I
Yeah.
blame a part of that, though, in the fact that there is just literally so much to watch that you don't have the bandwidth to actually process what you've seen. Otherwise, I think some of these movies would have like a little bit more staying power.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think more staying power. I'm dubious about whether or not something like this is going to even build enough staying power, or whether they're just going to check the boxes off.
Well,
you know what I mean?
And here's the thing: you could make a disaster movie before 9/11, and it would be fun.
You had to bring it up, Connor.
Nah, well, I did. This is the thing I was
You
thinking
said you wouldn't
about.
forget, Matt.
But
Talk
like,
about the
this
suck zone.
This is the thing. But this is the thing I was thinking about. Whereas, like, between Independence Day, which July 4th just happened, and Twister, and I don't know what's another one, Armageddon.
Yeah.
You could have
Deep Impact. Yeah.
Volcano.
Yeah, you could have cities being destroyed, forces of nature sneaking up on you and causing mass destruction and death. And there was a sort of thrilling aspect to it and a bit of fun to be had. Even in something as like, if you think about it, if you logic it all the way out, like Independence Day, like holy fuck. And then like 9/11 happens and like that shit ain't. To me personally, as a person who was like in my freshman year of high school when that happened, that shit ain't entertaining. That's just re-traumatizing.
Well, I'll take that and I'll add the world's gotten so shitty that the disasters are fun again.
That's another one of those memories. Like in my memory, he was just sort of like sucked off into the darkness.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I'm going to rephrase that. Cut that.
Phrasing? Are we not doing phrasing anymore? Yeah.
Taking that again.
That's how I want to go, honestly.
Taking that again.
You say take that again as if this isn't all just going to stay
It's
right
going to be at the
where.
end of the show. I know you, Frank. It's going to be after the closing VHS. In my memory, her dad is just sort
Blown
of
off into the darkness. Sorry.
Son of a bitch.